The Churches of Christ of the North Texas area present The Truth in Love.
How precious is the good divine, by inspiration given. Bright as the lamp its precept shine, to guide my soul to heaven. Holy book divine, precious treasure thine, lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home. It sweetly cheers my drooping heart in this dark vale of tears. Light to my life it still imparts, and quells my rising fears. Holy book divine, precious treasure thine, lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home. This lamp through all the tedious night of life shall guide my way, till I behold a clearer light of an eternal day. Holy book divine, precious treasure thine, lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home. Holy book divine, precious treasure thine, lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home.
Good morning, and welcome to The Truth in Love. I'm Leslie Parks, your host for today's program. It's a real pleasure to be able to take part in this marvelous telecast, and I'm thrilled that you have tuned in to be with us today. David Roper, whom you know is the regular host on this program, will be our speaker once again. I'll be saying more about his message in just a few moments. Right now, though, I want you to get a pencil and piece of paper ready. Following a song by the Fort Worth Christian Chorus, I'll be telling you how you can get a free study booklet to help you prepare for a special upcoming series on the home. We'll be back after this song.
When I survey the wondrous cross, on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were a present far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all.
Do you have your pencil and paper ready? As you may know by now, we've scheduled a special series on the home that will be starting in just a few weeks. This special series, entitled The Home as God Would Have It, will be presented by Robert Bankus, who preaches for the Brentwood Church of Christ in Fort Worth. The series will begin on May 13th and will continue for 2 more weeks. We've produced a special booklet that will coincide with these special messages. We're making this booklet available to you free of charge. All you have to do to get your free copy is to write to us and ask for the free booklet on the home. Here's the address to which you should write: The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. That address again is The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. We'll give you our address again at the end of the program. As I mentioned earlier, our speaker today is David Roper. David is a preacher for the Brown Trail Church of Christ in the greater Fort Worth area. David is a regular host of this program and has given several outstanding messages here on The Truth and Love in times past. On today's telecast, he'll be continuing a lesson that he started last week on the Ten Commandments. I'm sure that you'll enjoy his message. Now I present to you David Roper.
Thank you, Leslie. Let me add my word of welcome to you. We're glad you've joined us for the continuation of our discussion of the Ten Commandments. As I closed last time, I was noting that one could keep the original Ten Commandments perfectly and still be lost. As we noted in the first place, the Ten Commandments as such are part of a fulfilled agreement, are not the standard for us to follow today. The world-famous Decalogue was the heart of the covenant God made with the Jewish people on Mount Sinai. It was never intended to be a permanent part of God's arrangement. Today we're under the New Testament or covenant of Christ. In the second place, if one kept the Ten Commandments perfectly, he would observe Saturday as the special day of worship instead of Sunday, which is contrary to God's will for today. We noted last week that 9 of the original Ten Commandments have been repeated in the New Testament. The only one that has not is number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now, from the response we've received this week, apparently that thought is a rather startling one to some. So next week we're going to have a program just on the Sabbath. But to continue our line of thought, thirdly, the Ten Commandments are totally silent about the subject of salvation anyway. As Paul said, the old law reveals sin, Romans 7. The Ten Commandments reveal men as sinners, but did not show them how to get rid of that sin. The best the old law could do was give provisional forgiveness. There was still a remembrance of sins year by year. It is only in the New Testament that we're told how sin was finally removed. Notice Hebrews the 9th chapter, verse 15. Speaking of Christ, and for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. Now notice that Christ had to die before those under the Old Testament could be completely and eternally forgiven of their sins. And of course, if you want to be saved today, it must also be through the blood of Christ. And the Ten Commandments do not say one word about that. And finally, the Ten Commandments cannot tell a person how to benefit from the death of Christ. We learn how one does that from passages like Mark the 16th chapter. In verses 15 and 16, Jesus says to his disciples, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned." So don't be deceived. Just living a good moral life, just, quote, living up to the Ten Commandments, unquote, will not save anyone. We must trust in Jesus Christ and obey Him. But now let's return to our study of the commandments themselves. Today we want to study the last 6 of the Ten Commandments, which deal with one's relationship with his fellow man. We especially want to emphasize how each commandment was expanded in the New Testament. Again, we're spotlighting the idea that today one could keep the Ten Commandments perfectly and still be lost. Commandment number 5 was, "Honor thy father and thy mother." This commandment was designed to protect the home. There's no better place to begin thinking of one's relationship with his fellow man than to think of the way we treat one another in the home. The home is the cornerstone of society. This commandment teaches respect and esteem for one's parents. It has been suggested, however, that this is as much a command to parents as it is to children. Children's attitudes are largely taught to them by their parents. It's the parent who must teach his child to respect and honor authority. So this responsibility was twofold. This commandment has been definitely repeated and expanded in the New Testament. In Ephesians, the 6th chapter, verse 1 through 3, Paul said, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee and thou mayest live long on the earth." Now, there are at least 3 definite ideas expressed in honoring our fathers and mothers. First of all, when we're youngsters, it means obedience. This is a much-needed lesson for an age of rebellion. Secondly, when we're older, it means living the right kind of life. When we fail to act as we should, it's a reflection on our parents. When Jacob's sons sinned, he said, for you've made me to stink, Genesis 34 and 30. And then thirdly, when they're older, it means caring for them. Now, right now, it may mean letters or phone calls to let them know how much we care. Later on, it may mean caring for their personal welfare. Paul said in 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter, verse 8, if any provide not for his own, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Now, Paul was not referring to parents caring for their children, but rather those that were younger caring for those that are older. Well, this fifth commandment is a very vital one, not because it was one of the 10 commandments, but because it has been repeated and expanded in the New Testament. Commandment number 6, thou shalt not kill. This commandment was to protect life. Murder is the most grievous sin against society. You may steal a man's purse and later return it. You may ruin his good reputation by bearing false witness and later apologize and at least to some extent make amends. But if you take his life, you'll never be able to replace it. A man's life, with the exception of his soul, is his most precious possession. It might be noted, however, that this commandment did not make the death penalty wrong. Under the law of Moses, the death penalty was inflicted for some 20 crimes by the proper authorities. But to wantonly take the life of another was a violation of that very fundamental principle, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. While human life is still sacred today, so we're not surprised to find this commandment repeated in the New Testament. Romans the 13th chapter, verse 9, lists it along with several other of the commandments. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. However, in the New Testament, this commandment has been expanded to take in the cause of murder. Jesus said, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 and 22. According to John, there are many murderers who have never shed another's blood. Notice 1 John the 3rd chapter, verse 15. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. So, this commandment is one that we must obey. But let us remember we keep it because it's been repeated and expanded in the New Testament. Commandment number 7 read like this, thou shalt not commit adultery. This commandment was designed to protect the marriage relationship. The word adultery here actually takes in all illicit sexual relations, whether married or unpeople are involved. It was sorely needed by a people whose background was much like the little girl's list of the 10 commandments. When she came to the 7th commandment, she wrote, thou shalt not omit adultery. Well, as I'm sure you're aware, this commandment is greatly needed today. As we've already seen, it has been repeated in the New Testament, Romans the 13th chapter and verse 9. Again, however, it has been considerably expanded. Now today, we can commit adultery in at least 3 ways. First of all is physical adultery, the kind referred to in the 10 commandments, and the kind that is so graphically portrayed in so many movies and TV programs today. Secondly is mental adultery. Jesus forbids not only the act, but the lust that precedes it. Listen to Jesus' words in Matthew the 5th chapter, verse 27-28. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And then thirdly, legalized adultery, the marriage union of one or more divorced persons who are not scripturally free to marry again. According to the New Testament, there's only one scriptural reason for divorce and remarriage, and that's unfaithfulness on the part of one's marriage partner. Jesus said, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away, doth commit adultery. Matthew chapter 19 and verse 9. We very definitely then must not commit adultery, whether physical, mental, or legalized. But we obey this commandment not because it was one of the 10 commandments, but because it's a commandment of Jesus Christ. Commandment number 8 is, thou shalt not steal. This commandment protected property. Under the old law, the thief had to restore several-fold that which he had stolen. Now, as we've already seen, this commandment is repeated in the New Testament, Romans chapter 13, verse 9. There are many ways we can be guilty of stealing today. Getting too much change and not calling the cashier's attention to it, shortchanging someone, cheating in a trade, charging too high prices, swindling someone, not giving a full day's pay to someone who's working for us, and not giving a full day's work to an employee who's paying us for a full day's work. In Romans chapter 12, verse 17, the Apostle Paul said, recompense to no man evil for evil, provide things honest in the sight of all men. Again, however, the commandment has been expanded. Turn with me, if you will, to Ephesians chapter 4. In verse 28 of that chapter we read, let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth. Now, in the New Testament, not only are we not to steal, but we are to work. And not only are we to work, but we are to work in order to give. Thus, the commandment in the New Testament becomes a very positive one. Instead of stealing to have, we're to work to give. Well, again, you see the expansion idea in the New Testament. The old commandment would not be sufficient. The next commandment reads, thou shalt not bear false witness. Now, this commandment protected a man's reputation. A good reputation is one of man's most valuable possessions. The wise man said that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, Proverbs the 22nd chapter, verse 1. In the words of William Shakespeare, whoso steals my purse steals trash, but he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. We've already noted that Romans 13:9 lists this commandment in the New Testament. Now again, there are several ways we can bear false witness. There's perjury in court, there's gossip, slander and tale-bearing, misrepresentation, keeping quiet when we should speak in someone's defense, asking insinuating questions such as, are you sure she can be trusted? In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 10, the apostle says, for he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile. Well, it's very, very important not to speak untruths, but in the New Testament, this commandment has been expanded. Now, we've just noticed that Peter said we're to refrain our tongue from evil. But in Christianity, not only are we to refrain from speaking lies, we are to speak the truth. Notice Ephesians chapter 4. In verse 15 of this chapter, Paul says, but speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things which is the head, even Christ. Now, the old commandment could be kept just by keeping your mouth shut. The new, however, dictates that we have to say something, not lies, but rather to speak the truth. Commandment number 10 says, thou shalt not covet. Now, this last commandment protected the individual himself, because covetousness would produce many of the other sins already mentioned. In the Old Testament, covetousness referred to an inordinate desire to have that which belonged to another. Underline that in your mind, which belonged to another. This commandment was rather unique in that while most of the commandments sought to regulate the deeds, this one sought to regulate the heart. This commandment is also listed in Romans the 13th chapter, verse 9, and the problem of covetousness is still a very real one. In the New Testament, however, the word covetousness has been expanded to mean an inordinate desire of anything, especially material possessions. While in the Ten Commandments, covetousness was concerned with what the other fellow had, in the New Testament, covetousness can include thinking too much of what already belongs to us. On one occasion, a man came to Christ asking his help in getting back that which was rightfully his. Jesus' answer is found in Luke chapter 12. Notice carefully verse 15. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. Now let it be noted that Jesus is referring to what the man himself possessed, but Jesus still warned against being covetous. In this age, millions have been blinded by the luster of gold and have lost sight of the true values of life. They're blindly enslaved in the mad struggle of greed to get that which will soon be left behind. And Jesus says that's covetousness. And those who are so concerned about material things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So we find this commandment too has been expanded in the New Testament. Possibly now my statement will be more clear when I say that one could keep the 10 Commandments perfectly today and still not be saved. In addition to the reasons given earlier, let's add this one. If one kept simply the 10 Commandments as found in the Old Testament, he would be falling far short of the requirements of the New Testament, where most of these laws have been repeated and expanded. And let's remember these thoughts. The 10 Commandments have been taken out of the way and nailed to the cross. We're no longer bound by them. However, 9 of those commandments have been repeated in the New Testament. And we keep these commandments not because they were part of the 10 Commandments, but because they're found in the New Testament of Christ. They actually constitute a very small part of the overall teachings of Christ. Well, we need, I think, today to learn the lesson that was taught to Peter. In Matthew chapter 17, we have the story of the Mount of Transfiguration. Moses and Elijah appear with Jesus on this mountain, and we see Peter as he gets very, very excited, as he says, let's make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, one for Elijah. That's verse 4. But then Moses and Elijah vanished, and a voice came from above, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased, hear ye him. Matthew 17, verse 5. In other words, don't hear Moses who gave the 10 Commandments. Don't hear Elijah who tried to call men back to that law, but rather hear Jesus. Only Jesus has salvation. Only Jesus can tell us how to appropriate His gift through our trust and our obedience. As we said earlier, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. Mark 16:16. Let us not return to the weak and beggarly elements of the law, but let us rather rejoice in the glorious sunlight of the dispensation of grace through Jesus Christ. Well, we thank you again for your kind attention. We hope you'll be back with us next week for the special study on the Sabbath.
Night with ebb and pinion brooded o'er the vale. All around was silence, save the night wind's wail. When Christ, the man of sorrows, in tears and sweat and blood, prostrate in the garden, raised his voice to God, smitten for offenses which were not his own. He for our transgressions had to weep alone. No friend with words to comfort, nor hand to help was there. When the meek and lowly humbly bowed in prayer, Abba, Father, Father, if indeed it may, let this cup of anguish pass from me, I pray. Yet if it must be suffered by me, thine only Son, Abba, Father, Father, let thy will be done.
Thank you, David, for that marvelous message. If you have any questions or comments concerning Mr. Roper's lesson, please write to us. We'd love to hear from you. But let me remind you once again of the upcoming series on the home that will be presented by Robert Bankus. That 3-week series will begin on May 13th. We still have a good number of the free study book that's available that coincide with this series. But don't delay in writing to us to get your free copy. We don't want you to miss out on being able to study along with the TV messages. The announcer will give you our address at the end of the program. Here's David Roper once again with another special offer.
Would you like to know more about the greatest book for all ages? Would you like to have your life enriched by learning more about this book, how it offers you a better life? I want to give you a special opportunity to study the Holy Bible in the privacy of your home with the aid of a special film strip series. This free Christian service, offered by those who love God and wish to share this love with all people, makes the Bible message come alive for contemporary man. It's a new and complete Bible survey presented with famous master paintings in gorgeous color. Thousands of all faiths have viewed these 5 exciting sound film strips shown as a free public service. Beginning with the story of creation, the first lesson presents the stirring adventures of God's dealing with early mankind. The second lesson gives a dramatic presentation of the Mosaic Law period, which ended with Christ's death on the cross. The third film strip lesson portrays the glorious resurrection and the Christian age. God lives in man and his great spiritual body, the church. The story of salvation is presented precisely as recorded in the Bible. God's eternal love and mercy are dramatically portrayed in the fourth lesson. The final lesson in this series gives an informative study of the apostolic church through the ages. This film strip is most important concerning a study of Christ's church. Through this study, you can see the greatest book of the ages spring to life before your eyes. Don't miss this valuable opportunity. Simply call 817-282-6526 and ask for an appointment to see this panoramic view of the whole Bible. That number again is 817-282-6526. Or you may write to me, David Roper, at Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas, 76053, and ask for the Bible films. Please be sure to include your name, address, and phone number so we can contact you. That address again is David Roper, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas, 76053.
Christ, we do all adore Thee, and we do praise Thee forever. Christ, we do all adore Thee, and we do praise Thee forever. Sin redeemed. Christ, we do all adore Thee, and we do praise Thee forever. Christ, we do all adore Thee.
This has been The Truth in Love, sponsored by the Churches of Christ of the North Texas area. For a copy of today's program, additional information, or Bible correspondence course at no charge to you, please write The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. Once again, write The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. We invite you to attend the Church of Christ in your area. Join us again next Sunday at the same time for The Truth in Love.